Hey guys, it's Baban. I'm back with another speed draw thing, and this is my Inktober set again, and this one is second in a set of 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. There'll be links to where you can get prints of these down in the description, and at the end of the video they will also be coming out each week, so keep your eyes open for them. Okay, so this second one I'm starting off on a new canvas, and I brought in the other one just so I have a little bit of reference for the kind of sizes that I want. This one did end up changing a little bit, but I just wanted a little reference at the side for the kind of theme that I was going for and the same kind of layout. So I'm doing a quick little concept sketch now and trying to figure out where I want everything and what can be going on. Now this one is the kitchen witch that I was going to do. I mentioned in the last video that I'm trying to do 4 different witches in different environments relating to the kind of witchcraft that they do. And this one has just got all sorts of possibilities for weird little details to put in. I've got little jars of all sorts that I can put in. I've got the little cat, I've got the cauldron full of stuff, I can have things cooking in the oven. And this is usually how my little concept sketches work. Like, I'll do a really crappy one at first and figure out if I like the idea, and then I'll start doing a bit of a better one and moving it around, and then I've made that bigger to fit the correct ratio size for the canvas. And I'm just starting to tweak things a little bit so that I can make sure how much room I can put in, where I can put other little details and sneak things in. I didn't want the witch to be as big as she was in the original concept sketch that I did, so I'm resizing things a little bit. And now I've pretty much got something that I can go and work from. I'm just trying to add a few more little details in on this rough sketch so that I know where I'm going to be putting things when I go and clean it up, or I don't forget about the little ideas that I have for what I can throw in. Like, I want to put a book in the background, I want to do some shelves with a bunch of little jars on that I can put different things in. I'm going to have all these ones in the front. And now that that's done, I can start going and cleaning up the sketch. Now, I'm not sure, but I don't think this one took as long as the last one. The last one was around 12 hours, I think, and this one was more around 10, so it didn't take me as long. And I think that might be because I made the witch a little bit bigger, so she takes up a bit more room in the illustration, so I'm not going and putting as many details behind where she is. Also, drawing things like bottles and cans aren't really as laborious as going and drawing each individual leaf on something like I did with the last one. Also on this one, the focus is more like in the mid-ground and the foreground where the cat is, on these little shelves pulling the jars off, which is also blocking out a lot of the cabinet and shelf space that would be in the background that would be full of little details. But I think I like this one a bit better than the last one. I'm not sure. I think I might do. I kind of prefer that the last one had a little bit more detail in the background, but I prefer the overall look of this and that there's a little bit more going on. As I was going as well, since I was doing this on a stream, I was taking little suggestions from the chat, like putting some mushrooms, putting some salamanders hanging about. I've got a little stand to put a book on, or that's kind of hanging off of the bottom of the shelves. I've got different items I'm going to be putting onto the shelves, like unicorn meat. I've got a bottle of bones and different like eyeballs and things. Originally, I was planning to make her a bit more like a chef that had normal foods hanging about, but she was using magic on them. But it was a bit too much fun to go and add weird things like eyeballs and toads in, and like a creepy pig head in the oven. We've got some things hanging from the roof too, like different utensils. We got a little bit of deadly nightshade hanging about that's going to be like accidentally dropping into the cauldron. Just a whole bunch of different stuff going on. This one's also going to be more like an interior than the last one was. That was more of an exterior with buildings and things. But on this one I get to draw shelves and like the oven, and we're going to put some little details on that to make it look interesting, rather than just having it look completely like a modern oven. Also, as part of this witch's design, I wanted her to look more like a chef, so instead of giving her a proper witch's hat, it's kind of a mix between a witch hat where it's got the big wide brim on it, and a chef's hat where it's got the little poofy bit at the top. I also tried to make her dress a little bit more towards a chef's coat as well, but I did end up putting a few more details on it to make it look a bit more interesting rather than just having a big flat white coat. So it's got kind of a swirl around it in 2 different shades. I didn't want it to end up looking like she had a big like frilly dress, like she was a maid or something. I definitely wanted to go more towards her looking like a professional chef. And that also gives me room to put all sorts of different utensils hanging about. Like, she's got an icing spatula, she's got different pots and pans hanging about, another spatula up the top. We've got all different little cloves of garlic and onions, which I think end up getting blocked out by the bit of smoke that I put in, or steam coming from the cauldron. Anyway, we can start to see now how the sketch is starting to come together. As per usual, I do the background first and then start to work the characters into it because I changed the sizes of them around a little bit. I wasn't completely sure about it until I had the background in, and I knew how much space they were going to be taking up and what they were going to be going over the top of that could potentially be behind them. You can see me kind of messing about with the design too, thinking maybe can I put the buttons in a different kind of shape, adding in this swirl around the dress rather than having it just in a straight line, which I add 2 more later, changing the size of the character slightly so that she's giving us a little bit more room to put her next to this cauldron and mixing it, and going and adding the face in. I didn't want all my characters to look the same, so I'm giving her like a big nose and some big bunches of her hair with hairnets on. I think someone mentioned in the chat that she looked Spanish, which I kind of like. I think she kind of does, especially with the lips. I think she looks like she'd wear a lot of bright red lipstick, and she probably has a bunch of long, wavy, flowing hair and in those hairnets as well. What I'm going to be trying to do is balance out the shading on her outfit because I do want it to have a little bit of black in it. I'm going to try and match her shoes by making those black to the little band that she's got around her hat, because I know I want it to be mostly white, but I'm also going to be adding in a mid-tone to put a little bit of detail on it and not have it just one colour, but then I also want some bits that are completely dark. And now that the sketch is done, I'm starting to go in and do the lines for the background, making sure that they all work and just going over it and erasing bits to make sure that I've got everything correct. Doing the foreground as well. I'm also going to be trying and adding in a little bit more dark into the background too. I didn't want to make the roof or anything black. I was thinking about making the cupboard doors black, but I ended up mostly putting it in the countertops and the beam that's going across the centre of the ceiling, as well as the checkers on the floor and the oven. I think something that might have contributed to this being a little bit quicker for me to do as well could be that I got used to the process after doing the first one, but I don't think that will be a lot of the difference. It's usually just that after you've done something once, it's a little bit easier to understand the process and repeat it, which is why I always go on about having a set process for doing a certain style if you're going to be offering commissions in it. So you want to practice it a couple of times before you actually start offering it to people, so that when you go to do it, you're not getting stuck on it and wasting time and spending a long time just trying to figure out the process for a certain style or a certain way of doing things. To achieve some kind of look that they want, you want it to be something that you've already done and you're familiar with. And again, on this one, I'm trying to keep a really close eye on how zoomed in I am when I'm drawing all these lines in, and going to add all the line weight so that I'm not being too zoomed out and making a mess of it, and that the line weight is at kind of a place where it's fading out more towards the back. It's not as strong in the back as it is in the front. And what I also want to do is add a similar motif to all the little designs of hooks and things and on the oven. So I'm going to be drawing sort of a leafy design that I've already got on the oven and bringing that into other places, like the little hooks that I've got on the beam on the ceiling, and they're also going to be on the little hooks that are holding her bucket up at the side. And at the same time on this one, I'm also doing what I mentioned before, where I'm drawing the lines in and then just going and filling the different chunks in with a flat black colour. So I'm doing that on the oven now. I'm going to be doing it maybe on the worktops and filling those in, so that I'm actually going to go with more of a grey of those, so that'll be on a different layer. But you can see I did it on the cauldron, and then I drew on some lighter stuff, or just erased it so that it's got a little bit of detail over the top of it. Like where I'm putting black down, I'll go and draw the details in with white. I'm also trying to go and just add a bunch of different black parts to the rest of it, so that we do get some areas that are darker than the rest. Like on these toadstools, I can go and make those completely dark and put white spots on them. Like any details that I'm putting on anything that's darker, I'm just doing it with the inverse. Anything that's little details, like the salamanders that I'm putting on this cupboard at the top, and some of the cans, they're just going to be dark too. And because I know I'm going to be making the items that are inside these cupboards darker, then it's best for me to make the insides of the cupboards themselves lighter, so that we get that contrast between them. I'm also going to be putting a layer of just transparent-ish white over the top of the background, so that it can fade out a little bit, and again we don't get all this dark meshing with the dark that's in the front. We want it a bit of a reduced value so that it has a little bit more depth to it. We get a little bit of atmosphere in between what we're looking at the front and what we're looking at the back. And we're going to have a can of unicorn meat there because the more contrast we have, the more it's going to draw your eye in. So we don't want it to be too contrasty at the back. So if we reduce the values down to more mid-tones, or the range of the values isn't as much, then it's not going to be as distracting. We're going to look where there is a lot more contrast between the values, like pure black and pure white in the front. I think actually a lot of the stuff I draw in ends up getting erased, or not really erased, but covered up with the bit of steam that I end up putting in coming from the cauldron. But in the end, the composition ends up looking better for it, so I'm not super upset about it. Like all these pots and pans in the back end up getting covered up. I'm not sure if that bit of ginger ends up getting away from it. I know the onions end up getting covered. Again, I'm trying to bring in more black with these little details. So I'm making like the pots and pans black. I'm making the leaves on this black. The cauldron is black, like I mentioned before. Okay, so now I've got most of my details done, so I'm gonna go and zoom out from this and see what it looks like. And when I do, I think I decided that it didn't really have enough contrast in it. Like there was some bits that needed to be darker, so I went and experimented with making all this dark, and that really helped to make it a little bit more coherent. Like you can see where all the things are on the shelves now, and you kind of get led around by the dark shapes around it. Into the different things that are on the shelves. And now I'm just starting to go and fill everything in on different layers so that I've got a white background for everything. Anywhere that I've erased through the black is going to have that white behind it consistently rather than showing through what's behind it. And I'm just doing that for all the little items that I've got in the front. And I'm also introducing a different grey to do all these worktops and the beam at the top and around the shelves, so that it breaks it up a little bit, but it isn't completely dark. And then I'm also going to get that bit of white wash over the top of it so that it fades out a bit more towards the top as well, and kind of looks like the environment is heavy with all the steam that's coming from this cauldron. Okay, so now that I've got my background all done, I'm just going to add a few more little details on, and then we will get started drawing the witch and the cat. I actually really enjoyed drawing the cat, and that was another opportunity for me to get some more textures and details in. You can see I'm putting a little bit of texture around on these beams and on the work surfaces so that that fills it out a bit more, and I'm making that darker. And I'm also going to be putting tabby stripes on the cat in a grey colour that matches the shade that I'm putting on it. So by doing that, I get this like dark texture in all the wood on top of the work surfaces, but I don't want it to be as strong on the cat, so I'm just going to make it a little bit lighter. So we get a lot of attention on the cat because it's got more detail and it's stripy, but it's not going to be blending into the dark background too much. Drawing something like this is a very, very careful game of just managing what kind of values you include. You can see me now starting to go in and put more detail onto the witch. I did want to give her a little bit of ruffles around the bottom of her dress. I don't think it looks too much like she's more of a home cook. I definitely wanted her to be more towards a chef, but I wanted to have some little flair to her costume rather than just looking completely professional. And because her dress is going to be mostly white, then that gives me room to make her hair black and put little black details like the band that's on her hat and her shoes. And that's going to give us a whole bunch of contrast around her face to frame it and have that be where we're mainly going to be looking, as well as where the cauldron is, because that's completely black. So I don't want her to be taken away from by all the stripes on this cat, so she does need a lot more contrast on her. But we also want the cat to be part of it. We want those two to be the main focus. I'm also going to make her glove have a similar design to her shoes with the little beads on it, along with the little emblem that is on her hat. And just going and finishing some of these other little details on her. I'm going to put some herbs in her hat to match the ones that she's got hanging up drying above the cauldron. I'm going to give her some nail varnish just to add a few more little dark bits in. I just need to finish her face and some details on the cat, and then all we need to do is go and fill the back of them in, and we can start doing the shading. Okay, so I'm going to go and select around all of them now that I've got all the lines. I had to separate it a little bit with lines around the other layers that were behind the cat. because I did the entire background on just one layer, and now I've made everything full opacity again so we can see how dark everything is and how it does kind of distract from what's going on in the front with the background having such dark, thick lines. I'm just going and adding a few more little details into the background to bulk it out a bit, because we've still got that bit of shelf in the background that needs detail putting on. And the last little bit of detail that I'm going to need, which is the smoke that's going to be billowing around. And like I mentioned before, it is kind of covering a few things up, but that's okay. I don't want it to. I don't want to be too lazy and like not draw stuff underneath, because then you don't get where things are overlapping, which usually helps to give things a bit of depth. If you've actually got something that is behind something in the front, it gives you the sense that the drawing doesn't just stop where you can immediately see something. And it really helps to play up foreshortening as well. I know it's something that people are really scared of because it can be difficult to do, especially if people like to sketch on one layer, but it really will help the way that your art looks. And now we're going in and doing the shading on them. Like I mentioned, I wanted to put 2 different colours onto her dress, so we've also got that dark band around her waist as well. But we've got the grey kind of swirly band around the entire dress, so that it kind of looks like it's made up of 2 separate pieces of material, and they're all just buttoned together, like 2 long strips of material that are buttoned together to make one outfit. And the lighting isn't as obvious on this one because it's, I guess not as strong as the other one, but I want it to be quite heavy over the top so that we get a lot of dark underneath things, like under the brim of her hat. We're also going to get a lot under where all these shelves are on the insides of them, and we can light up just where the light's kind of peeking into them. And adding some little details onto her book and everything so that it doesn't just look like one big chunk of white paper. I tried to add some like little coffee stains, like food stains onto it, or watermarks, so that she's been kind of making a mess and cooking with her book just lying around and spilt food and water and things on it. You can see I've also faded out the steam a little bit as it's gone further up so that that doesn't interfere as much with the contrast that we've got going on further down. I've also got a different colour for the outline of it. It's just the same grey that I've been shading everything with, but it gives it a little bit of a softer outline because we don't really want a strong dark black outline on something like smoke, because it's gonna look far too heavy, and it kind of looks nice to have this grey shade just going over the top of all the darker things in the background. And at this point it is just a case of like nibbling at it and noticing anywhere that I've missed anything and needs shading in to make it seem a bit darker. I'm adding a little bit of reflection onto the oven, and you could see before that I was starting to mess about with the colours that I liked once I had quite a lot of the values down for everything, just to see how it would react to them. And I ended up deciding on kind of pink and orange for this because it kind of reminds me of different spices, like warm colours, and I guess like a warm kitchen where things are being cooked and there's a lot of steam about. So we're going to go and put those colours back over the top and a little bit of sparkle around the steam coming from the cauldron. And then of course after I go and save it and think it's finished, I find some other little bits that probably need details going in, so I'm going to go and fix some of those, and there we go, it's done. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope this helped. If it did, give us a like, share if you think it'll help someone else, and subscribe for new videos on Fridays. There's links down in the description to get prints of this one and the others in the set. There's also a link to the Discord group if you want to come and chat art shit with us, as well as links to my commission info and places that I post stuff. Lastly, here's a couple of links to some relevant videos. Yeah, thanks for watching, lads. Bye-bye!